Hey, what's up, John Sonmed from SimpleProgrammer.com. I thought I would do a quick book review here since I finished another book that I've been meaning to read for a while, or listen to the audio version. Although this book I'm going to recommend that you probably read because it's a little bit hard to digest in the audio version, although it might be hard to digest in a written version as well. It's Joseph Campbell's famous book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And this is a complex book, definitely. This is not a light read, not an easy read. It is basically a book about the monomyth, or the one myth that sort of pervades human reality and consciousness. And he basically goes through and he describes in many cultures the similarities, these different myths, and what they sort of mean, not just from, he kind of redefines mythology as not just something that explains the natural world, but explains the human psyche and psychology and sort of the essence of what exists, what it means to be human. So he shows how that throughout time, there's only one myth, there's only one story, the hero's journey, right? The hero with a thousand faces, the hero that is created by not by men, not by mankind, but by the universe, that it has to be this way. And he goes through the progress and the progress of the hero and the different types of heroes that exist throughout history, throughout mythology. Pretty interesting, like a lot of different mythologies, a lot of Native American mythologies, a lot of not so much some of the Greek mythology he goes into that you might already be familiar with, but a lot of really weird mythology, especially the cosmology part, where he talks about how a lot of mythologies talk about the creation of the universe and how things came about. And it's quite an interesting book, I think. It's very much centered on this idea that, looking at all these mythologies, you can see that there is definitely a connecting thread that goes through, and that this same storyline plays out today, that it's this classic battle. Anyway, I don't want to try and dissect this entire book because this is I probably need to read through this a second time to digest it. As far as a lot of people said this was a really, really good book, and I wasn't extremely impressed by the book. It wasn't a book that I would put on the must read. I thought it was interesting, and I read it because so many people had recommended this book, and it's kind of a classical book. I'm curious to check out some of Joseph Campbell's other stuff, but I felt like the level that some of the writing was at was a little bit too high, which makes it a little bit difficult to comprehend. It could have been explained in a much more simple way, and I understand it's more of an academic book, I would say. So it's definitely interesting, right? If you're really interested in mythology, you're really interested in the idea of what different cultures have said through time and cosmology and all that stuff, you can definitely, it's definitely a must-read book if that's what your interest is. But in general, I didn't see too much of an application, even as doing copywriting or storyteller or doing stuff like that. I didn't see a huge amount. I felt like some of the dots there were some pretty big leaps to connect those things. I might not have connected them the same way, but I thought it was a good book, like I said, overall. But it was definitely hard to get into, definitely difficult. I had to back up the audio version that I was listening to several times, back up and re-listen to a part because I kind of zoned out because it wasn't really engaging me very much in some of the stories. But definitely changed my mind on some mythology. I'm surprised by some mythology I hadn't ever heard of that just seems so crazy out there. And for him, he did connect some of those things together, and I said, okay, I can see the flow here, and I can kind of grasp this idea of what the hero's journey is, how the hero, classic hero, goes through, and basically, the whole premise would essentially be this: that the hero goes out and he goes and he, finds himself, like it dissolves as he goes, finds his connection with the one, with the great father or the great mother, and then he brings that back to the real world, right, as he's sort of been able to overcome and dissolve his own ego. And that's the classic hero story. So anyway, interesting book. You can check it out here. It's called The Man with a Thousand, or The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Again, not a book that I say that you must read. Definitely check out the rest of my book recommendations and reviews if you're looking for something to read. But again, if you're interested in mythology, I would recommend the book. I don't think it quite lives up to the hype, to how much people have recommended this book. I frankly don't understand that. Like I could have probably skipped this book and been fine. But there you go. I read it, and I've given you the review. So if you like these reviews, if you want to get more of these, to know what books to read and what books not to read, go ahead and click the subscribe button. I pretty much, like I said, get through 2 to 3 books a week as I'm running, so many miles. So click the subscribe button and you'll see my reviews here. And I'll talk to you next time. Take care.